Hello everyone, welcome to Recapping Stories. Today I'll be checking a movie called Hide and Seek. Warning, there will be spoilers. On the first day of the new year, a little girl, Emily, plays in a park with her mother, Allison, as her father, David, watches them. That night, Emily hides in the bed and Allison pretends to look for her before telling her good night. David tries to talk with his wife, who merely replies that some things can't be solved with therapy. At 2:06 in the morning, he wakes up and sees that his wife is not in the bed. He finds her dead in the bathtub, apparently having killed herself. Emily watches in shock as her father holds her mother's corpse. Some time later, Emily is at a children's hospital. Observing her, David talks with a friend and fellow psychologist, Catherine, blaming himself for not seeing the signs of his wife's problems. He has also decided to move out of the city for a fresh start. Catherine thinks the move is not what Emily needs and is upset at the idea of being separated from them, to which David replies they'll be within 1 hour of distance and that Catherine is always welcome to visit. As a parting gift, Catherine gives Emily a music box and they hug before the little girl and her father leave. At their new house, they meet a man, Haskins, and the sheriff, Rafferty. Emily is withdrawn and doesn't express any opinion regarding the new house, though she seems interested in a small pet on the property. Dinner that night is quiet, and Emily also doesn't seem to be hungry. Her father tries to make her laugh by making a face the way her mother used to, but it doesn't achieve the same results. In the same manner, at bedtime, he tries the game of hide and seek, but once again the results are less than ideal. After Emily lies down, he gives her a diary and tries to comfort her. The next morning, David settles his new office, while Emily explores the path behind the house, going off it when she follows a butterfly. She finds a small cave and sees something that makes her drop her doll. Apparently not realizing his daughter went outside, David calls for her, as they needed to go to town for shopping. Emily soon appears, but her doll is nowhere in sight. When David opens the door, he finds a woman, Laura. She introduces herself as one of the neighbors and gives them a welcome basket. Once more, Emily is rather quiet. On the way to the town, David sees a woman, Elizabeth, with her niece, Amy, and introduces himself as his daughter watches from the car. Wanting to find friends for Emily, he arranges a play date with Amy. That night, Emily surprises her father by not wanting to sleep with her doll, saying she doesn't like her anymore, as she has made a new friend. David at first thinks she means another doll, but Emily corrects him. Charlie is not a doll. She has met him today before they went to town. David assumes his daughter has an imaginary friend. On the phone, Catherine assures him this is not uncommon for a child, let alone a traumatized one. Trauma causes pain, and eventually the mind finds a way to release its pain. Still, David would prefer if Emily confided in him. Catherine replies that Emily does need David. When he goes to take out the trash, David finds Emily's doll in the dumpster, her face destroyed. The next day, while buying fishing rods, David sees Sheriff Rafferty talking with Emily. The sheriff also gives him a welcome gift, a ticket for parking a handicap zone. Emily seems to find this ordeal rather funny. Dinner is still silent until David inquires his daughter about Charlie. She replies he's fun, like her mother. David has nightmares about the New Year's party and wakes at 2:06 in the morning. He gets up and sees there's light coming from the bathroom. It's full of candles and a message on the wall. You let her die. He turns to Emily, who's standing at the door. When he asks why she did this, Emily denies her involvement and blames Charlie. The next day, Elizabeth and Amy arrive. While Elizabeth and David have a cup of coffee, getting to know one another, Amy tries to befriend Emily. Emily quietly tells her would-be friend that she shouldn't be there, as she could get hurt. To drive her point across, she ruins Amy's doll. Despite the play date being less than what David hoped for, he and Elizabeth get along well and agree to see each other later. When he asks Emily if she liked Amy, his daughter simply says she doesn't need any more friends. As he washes the dishes, David sees Emily playing by herself. He notes that one of the kitchen knives is slightly out of place, but thinks nothing of it. When he looks out again, he sees a man with Emily. The man, Stephen, introduces himself as Laura's husband. After they go inside, David reminds Emily that she shouldn't talk to strangers. However, she thinks Stephen isn't a stranger. He's their neighbor. That night, David hears Emily laughing and finds her sitting on her bed, smiling. When asked if Charlie is with her, she replies that he just left and indicates the open window. David remembers that he was unable to open it before. Emily also claims she didn't open it and talked that her father did. David tries to talk to his daughter about Charlie, which she doesn't think is a good idea. Charlie doesn't like David. Later, in his office, David continues to write about Emily's mental and emotional state. In her room, the little girl is counting before she starts to walk around the house, looking for Charlie as they play hide and seek. She ends up in the basement and screams when the lights go out, alerting her father. He rushes to her, finding her in a corner, terrified. When the lights return, Emily quietly asks to go to bed. The next day, Elizabeth comes over for dinner. Emily comes down dressed in her mother's old clothes. Displeased, David tells her to change, but Elizabeth brushes it off. She tries to reach out to Emily, giving her a few books. The girl lets her know how much she appreciates the gift by slowly dropping the books out of the table. She confronts her dad, inquiring if he likes Elizabeth as much as her mother, as Charlie claims he does. After he sends her to bed, David apologizes to Elizabeth and explains that Charlie is Emily's imaginary friend. Later, as they exchange goodbyes, Emily watches from her window. David's sleeping issues come by again, as he dreams of the New Year's party and wakes at 2:06. Once more, he goes into the bathroom. The message now says, "Look at what you've done." To drive the point across, the family's cat is dead in the bathtub. As he prepares to clean the mess, David hears noises at the door and finds Haskins, who was trying to slip an envelope with the keys for the rest of the rooms under the door. He apologizes for forgetting to hand them over earlier. David doesn't seem quite convinced, but doesn't insist on the subject, as he has some cleaning to do. David asks Emily why Charlie would do what he did, then tells her that Charlie does not exist. Emily simply replies that he shouldn't say this, as Charlie will be mad. When David asks to see him, Emily shows him the drawings she made, including one of Charlie with her and her mother. When David says that Allison would have liked Charlie, Emily replies that Charlie said he would have satisfied her. Shocked, David insists that his daughter's friend is not real and demands to know who told her such a thing. Frustrated, Emily yells Charlie's name several times. Catherine comes for a visit, receiving an enthusiastic hug from Emily. She tries talking about Charlie with her as well, and though Emily gives some answers, she also tells Catherine that Charlie is afraid that she'll get in the way of their game of upsetting her father. Worried, Catherine tries to convince David to let her take Emily back to New York, at least for an evaluation. He declines, prompting her to remind him that Emily is not his patient. Eventually, he agrees to take her back, in 2 weeks if things don't get better. At night, David notices that Emily's shelf has no more dolls left. He picks up her diary, but rather than using it to register her thoughts, Emily has decided to make it into a flip book of her mother's suicide. He pretends nothing is wrong when Emily sees him. The next day, David is in his office and doesn't listen when Elizabeth comes by. She gets inside anyway and goes upstairs, finding Emily in her room. She gives her flowers as she still wants them to become friends. Emily asks her if she likes games, and the woman takes this as an invitation to play. The little girl corrects her that she's already playing. She's playing hide and seek with Charlie. Remembering that he's her imaginary friend, Elizabeth tries to play along and searches for him in the closet. The game turns out to not be imaginary enough to stop someone from pushing her through the window. David suddenly wakes up, realizing he has fallen asleep in his office and that it's night already. In the living room, he sees that his face has been ripped off from all of the photos. As for Emily, she is in her room, drawing the failed game of hide and seek, and remains unresponsive when David asks what happened after seeing the broken window. Sheriff Rafferty comes over to ask a few questions. He found Elizabeth's car crashed on the side of the road and she is missing. Emily told the sheriff that Elizabeth had gone to visit David, but he hasn't seen her. Rafferty notices the ripped photos before asking Emily if she saw Elizabeth. She didn't. After Rafferty leaves, David rushes upstairs, finding Emily in tears. When he asks where Elizabeth is, she tearfully shows him a toy clock, pointing to 2:06. In the bedroom, there is a message, "Can you see now?" And this time, in the absence of a cat nearby, it's Elizabeth's body that lies in the bathtub. David tries to get Emily to explain what's going on and help him, but she sobs that she can't. She's sorry, but she can't. He leaves, locking her in the room, and heading to his office. Emily tries to pick the door open, but someone opens it for her. Carefully, she goes out and calls Catherine, asking her for help. Her father cannot save her now. Realizing that Charlie might not be so imaginary after all, David returns to the bedroom to remove the body, but Charlie has already taken care of that. He runs out of the house in search of Charlie, who Emily says is hiding. He finds Stephen, who came to see if everything is alright after hearing noises, saying he saw David with a shovel. Worried about Emily's safety, Stephen asks to see her. Furious, David attacks him and returns to the house, locking it and yelling at Stephen to leave. He embraces Emily, apologizing for not believing in her. Emily begs her father to not make her see Charlie again and to not leave her. Suddenly, David sees Box in his office. Going there, we see that everything is actually still packed. Growing scared, David recalls the times he was in his office, things that Emily said, and strange occurrences as he unpacks everything, seeing his notebooks are still empty. The man realizes he has deep scratches on his arm. Finally, he realizes the truth. David suffers from dissociative personality disorder, and Charlie is another personality inside of him. Whenever he thought he was in the office, Charlie was actually in control. During the New Year's party, David followed his wife and found out she was having an affair. At this point, it's unclear whether David has always had this condition and finding out about the affair was simply the last straw necessary for Charlie to assume control, or if the affair alone was traumatic enough to shatter David's psyche, thus creating Charlie. Another possibility is that it was actually David who started to smother his wife, and Charlie was created in the middle of the act, as David could not bear that he had acted on such a violent impulse, but couldn't get rid of it either. Emily asks if he can see it now. The man's eyes suddenly change their expression, and he turns around, smiling. Charlie says it's alright. Dad is gone now. Sheriff Rafferty returns, having been called by Stephen. Finding Emily in her room, he asks her about her father and if everything's alright, but the girl keeps drawing. When inquired about it, she replies that she is drawing him, dying. At this moment the lights go out and Emily hides. Rafferty goes to turn the lights on and is killed by Charlie. Emily sees the door to the basement open, and hoping she may lock Charlie there, she picks up a wooden spoon, but the man is waiting for her. He confronts Emily, wondering if she doesn't want to play anymore, and if she likes David better than him. The girl whispers that Charlie was the one who killed her mother, implying she was not sure before which one of them had done it. It's also possible that Charlie has manipulated Emily, telling her that David was the one who killed her mother. Charlie stares at her for a moment, saying nothing before he starts to count, prompting Emily to run upstairs in fear. Catherine arrives at that moment, calling for David and Emily. She stops at the basement stairs, but hesitates, turning around to see Charlie. Realizing he doesn't seem to be himself, she whispers David's name. Charlie shakes his head before hitting her, and she falls downstairs. Catherine stumbles around, eventually finding Rafferty's body and taking his gun. Charlie resumes his search for Emily. She manages to escape him and locks herself in her room, leaving through the window before Charlie forces his way in. She runs through the woods, hiding in the cave from earlier. Back in the house, Catherine escapes and goes to Emily's room, where she sees the drawings and hears Charlie outside, calling for the girl. Charlie also goes to the cave, taunting Emily about how her father is searching for her. The cave is littered with the girl's broken dolls, as well as the music box that Catherine gave her. Catherine catches up, holding Charlie at gunpoint. He pretends to be David and knocks the gun out of her hands when he gets close enough, then starts to strangle her. At this point, Emily cries out, revealing herself as she begs him to not hurt Catherine. Charlie asks her why, and she replies that Catherine is her friend. Charlie says he thought he was Emily's friend. He approaches Emily to kill her, turning the flashlight on and off. Catherine gets between them, telling Emily to close her eyes before she shoots Charlie, killing him and David. We cut to a few months later. With Charlie and David dead, Catherine has taken Emily in, and the two seem to be living happily. After they leave for school, we see a drawing that Emily made of herself and Catherine. However, in it, Emily has two heads, indicating that she has also developed a second personality.